Welcome back to the Get Set podcast, an old girls entertainment production where neoteric meets nostalgia. We're a podcast demystifying the idea of an overnight success while highlighting the array of diverse jobs within the industry, with a focus, of course, on women in the film and TV space. Today, it's your co-host here, myself, Monique Schwaneman, and
Jessica Payne. And for part 2 of our Producers Week, we have with us today Kim Jackson. Kim Jackson is a celebrated producer and creative, as well as a pioneer in entertainment, blockchain funding, development, and rights management. She is a co-founder of the entertainment studio Evotion Media and has been active on several boards, including the ACE programs for the homeless, and has participated on the Gwen Ifill College of Media Arts and Humanities at Simmons University. Kim began her career working with Disney Touchstone Television in Los Angeles and then relocated to her first love, New York City, where she founded Streetwise Pictures.
Through Streetwise Pictures, she provided production services and investor relations for numerous theatrical and streaming feature projects. Her work has received Gotham, Spirit, and NAACP award nominations, as well as the grand prize at the Deauville Film Festival. One of the films Jackson produced has been selected for opening night at New Directors' New Films at MoMA. Her films have been featured in competition at Rotterdam, Sundance, and Cannes. Jackson is a member of the PGA and Producers Union and is proud to serve as the board president for the New York Women in Film and Television. So welcome to the podcast, Kim Jackson.
Yes.
Hello, Jessica. How are you?
Good. Oh my gosh, thanks so much for coming on. So let's get started with first things first. In your own words, who are you and where do you call home?
Who am I? That's such an existential question, isn't it?
We like to start it off, really challenging here.
I ask myself that every day. Who am I? I'm a woman who lives in New York City, and I really do love New York City. And when I say first love, when I moved to New York about, almost 25 years ago, I so was in love with this city. I was so in love with the city. It's like I was so romanticized. I think it was just the influence of Sex and the City, probably. I was like, I'm going to run around in the streets in my high-heeled shoes. And not exactly like that. It wasn't exactly like that. But I do love New York. And it has been home. And it is, for my career, really been a very generous place for me to call home. I'm a producer. I'm also going to be directing moving forward in the next year or two. I'm directing a couple pieces, a play and a feature film.
Congrats.
So primarily, I've been a producer in New York City for over 20 years. I got my start, I would say, everybody's trajectory and story is a little different in the origin, but I've always been a storyteller in one way or another and not really realized it because I started out dancing. I was a dancer. And so dancers are storytellers with their bodies. And so always sort of did that, not super professionally, but definitely stayed involved until I moved to New York. I always danced in one form or another. And when I was in Boston studying at Simmons University, I was in a Butoh group. We were doing Butoh, which is this Japanese impressionistic dance. So I've done everything from, the typical jazz, modern, tap, even a little. I didn't really care for that. Didn't have a ballerina body, so never really did that. But like modern dance, jazz dance, Butoh. And then when I moved to New York, believe it or not, I was in the burlesque scene for 5 minutes. But there's no money there, so I really had to kind of get serious. I started working in production right away. I kind of skipped the PAing thing and went right into production coordinating. And I got on a big union job for Universal and made my hours and got into the 161, which was for line producers, production managers. So I did that for a bit. And just, it was a really exciting time in New York because there was a lot of work happening. I mean, you couldn't walk down a 2-block radius and not see, production trucks or, posters saying, don't park here tomorrow and the next day. So it was super exciting. And so just networking, I networked a lot. And I did also seasonally work for some film festivals, which really helped me meet people in the industry, especially in New York. So I worked for a few years at the Hamptons International Film Festival as essentially their line producer, but I think they called the role operation manager or something like that. And I worked for Tribeca Film Festival when they first started and were below Canal Street, revitalizing Lower Manhattan after 9/11. And helped launch some film festivals. So I was sort of doing that seasonal film festival thing, which really sort of helped me meet people who were making movies. And then I would get picked up doing I started doing a lot of indies. I kind of left the union sort of gigs and went more into indie and like straight into producing and line producing, and did a lot of great projects, met a lot of great people, worked on films that I'm very proud of that are, that my name is associated with. So that's sort of like the initial trajectory of my career.
And so when you made that jump, having all those skills of being a line producer is so valuable, especially when you're an indie producer and having all that knowledge. How was that jump for you? Hold up. Jess and I are crowdfunding for our first feature.
That's right. Our 1970s period piece about how my mom was denied a line of credit simply for being a woman.
And then writing a news-breaking article about it in her local paper before the Equal Credit Opportunity Act passes is coming to be.
Yep. And you can visit the link in our show notes or in our Instagram bio of Older Girls Entertainment to see how you can share and get involved and be a part of our Seed and Spark campaign.
So please go do that. And now we're back to our normally scheduled programming.
That's right. It's a good one.
Going from the line producer and then to an indie producer for that entire project.
Well, when you're on indies, you kind of have to do it all,
True.
So, I mean, sometimes I was line producing, but getting a producer credit because I brought some money with me, a little bit of funding, or the people I'm working with were, we'd get a production manager and I would do the line producing, but take a producer credit. Because, in indie, you can have a little bit more flexibility. But it's when I joined the PGA that really, your credit starts to really, mean something very, very particular. And you can't just throw those producer credits around. You really have to do the job. And in order to get the PGA, mark behind your name, you have to fill out, a ginormous application. And then a lot of the people who worked with you have to confirm that you actually did those roles in the movie. So, but yeah, that leap, it was kind of organic because of the nature of indie film, and also just, line producing is like hiring all the crew and putting everybody together to make it all happen and keep it on budget and on time. And, being a control freak helps.
And what was the process like, that application process like for the PGA?
So there's a special, portal and you go in and it's quite extensive. You have to submit the credits. You have to submit almost all the materials that are involved with a film production. And then you have to provide them with the names and contact information for lots of folks, like the director, the editor, the AD, everybody and anybody that, that you would interact with from development all the way through post-production into sales as well, if you're selling the movie as well, because it's, you're involved in all of that. So they've really trying to get away from people taking producer credits for not really doing the work, because it waters down what we do. And essentially what the PGA does is, in the chance that your film gets nominated for an Academy Award and there's 17 producers, the producers who really did the work are the ones that get to go up on stage and accept the award. And so that's how that gets determined, and they'll go to bat for you. If like there's a dispute or a disagreement on who should be getting the award, they'll go to bat for you, assuming you've gone through and done the application properly and received the producer mark and all of that stuff. So, it's extremely helpful for that. But, there's a rare chance that your film's going to go to the Academy Awards. But, to me, it means being part of an organization that really respects what producers do, because it is a thankless job. And a lot of times we're the last people to get recognized or thanked when we're at the film festivals and the award ceremonies. They want to talk to the actors, they want to talk to the directors. And meanwhile, the producer has done all of the work, all the heavy lifting. They don't really want to talk to producers very, very much. There are certain festivals that really do honor what producers do and will make a specific effort to do things specifically around producers, like host luncheons and conversations and, and really highlight them, which is so appreciated because I liken it to like, you're a mother of this and you do all the work and behind the scenes and people just don't appreciate like everything that goes into it. And you're the last one to get thanked for creating the stars. So yeah, it might be why I think I'm interested in directing now, finally in my career. And then there's the Producers United, which is a new group in the last couple of years. I think you might have said Producers Union, which it is a union, a legitimate union. PGA is not a union per se, but this is a legitimate union that is getting for producers, getting us healthcare and getting us development funds. And, we're the ones who bring these things to life and work tirelessly and work for, no money to get something off the ground. And then once the money shows up, yeah, we get a salary, but we don't get compensated for all that time that it took to get the thing up. And so they're saying no more of that. No.
Yeah. And arguably, you're married to the project, one of the longest people married to that project for, continuing on. So
yeah, it's like giving birth to something, you can't just drop it. I mean, I get emails 4 years later about tax stuff and, all kinds of things. It's like, oh God, I mean, find my hard drives and go, find something. So yeah. And so the Producers United is putting, they're really saying no more. And so there's an incredible group of people who have organized this finally. And I think it's fantastic and well needed.
Can you speak to us a little bit about that choice to stay in the indie space versus like that corporate company world, especially when you were, starting out and you had these multiple different pathways? What made you choose that the indie space was the best fit?
I always joke I'm unemployable. I can't keep my mouth shut. And like, you know what I mean? Like you have to play the game and you gotta, and I don't know, I got in trouble a few times for just speaking my mind and the truth against just injustices that I would witness. And they don't like that. They don't like that. Get in line, get in step. And in the indie space, I'm not saying weird injustices don't happen or anything like that, but creatively speaking, you definitely have more freedom creatively, like with the story and the script. And you don't have people at a desk saying, get rid of this line, or you can't cast this person, or, we don't understand this in the edit and take this out, or whatever, and, we see the results because we see these movies out all the time. I just was talking to Monique briefly, last week, and I was like, I just watched a film, and I don't know if you've had a chance to watch it. We won't name names because it's not nice, but I just like, it's film after film that you watch and you're just like, how did this get $30 million to make when it's, so I don't know. I just feel like there's a freedom and frankly, more raw creativity involved that's less watered down by non-creatives. So that idea, and it probably came from my like just theatrical dance and, I was in burlesque, and there's just such raw communication going on. And, so I think it's okay not to be so PC all the time in your creative expression. I mean, there are ridiculous characters who say ridiculous things in the world, and like it's a character. It's not, so like if it's offending you, maybe it should offend you, like that's kind of the point. And so to water it down and to not be offensive and to, it's like, what are we creating? This homogenous sort of everybody just, this mediocrity. And so I don't know.
Well, it's not at that point, the art it becomes not indicative of like real world. Because in real world
is offensive.
It's offensive.
Gray areas. And we learn from those characters, right? Like, sometimes the best thing to see is someone, making a mistake, like a character making a mistake, and then you learn from it, so, and, people even can be like, oh, I recognize that. I've learned from my mistakes or whatever. You know what I mean?
Absolutely. And, art, if it's doing its job, it's making you feel something, and it doesn't have to make you feel good. Mm-hmm. It can make you feel it can piss you off. It can make you feel sad. It can, but that means it's doing its job because it's making you think about its impact on you. And in my opinion, if it's not doing that, then how can you really call it art? And then it's content, then it's just this bubblegum, cotton candy. Okay, great, fine, whatever. And there's a lot of that out there. So I think the indie space there's just a lot more freedom. With that comes pros and cons, of course, especially when it gets to distribution. But yeah, that's been, and I like the ability to put together my own groups and work with the people that I want to work with.
Are there specific stories that you're drawn to or genres that you're drawn to?
Lately, I'm really drawn to stories that leave us in a better place than where we started when we watched it. I love sci-fi. I love suspended reality, sort of psychological dramas, but that have more of a positive type of, they let you off in a positive way. They don't, it's not this tragic. All we have to do is turn on the news right now and we get enough tragedy. I'm really drawn to stories that have a little more of a uplifting, positive feeling, and also just stories that are seminal, that really can, get to the heart of you and make you think and, make you sort of question certain choices of things that you're doing in your life. Hopefully. Now, a lot of time when I say sci-fi, those are expensive to make. So, I don't always get to do that in the indie space. I've tried to stay away from horror movies and things like that. There's enough of that in the world, I think. So, but, unique stories, because as a producer, especially in the indie space, it's a long road. It's challenging all the time. And you go home sometimes at the end of the night and you say, why am I doing this? This is insane. I'm not making that much money. And if you're doing it because it's a great story, then that's what you hang your hat on, at the end of the night. It's like, okay, I'm doing it because this is a very important story. And so I think choosing a good story is very, very important, because a lot of times at the end of it all, that's what you can be most proud of, and that's what can ground you in continuing on.
Kind of starting from top to bottom with the feature, is there a biggest advice that you have for someone in development, specifically when they're developing in development?
Choose your partners wisely. Don't sign anything too solid right away until you have the money. Meaning, if you're locking yourself in with people really early on, because it's a bit of a journey, and these things all have their own timelines, you can a soft attachment, and I mean, that could be with a director or a co-pro or, actors even, because once the money shows up, a lot of times, and that could be foreign, it could be independent, financing, whatever. A lot of times that financing starts to dictate certain things. And if you've locked yourself into something with somebody, it might prohibit you from moving forward with that particular bit of financing. So that's one area. And then the other is development. It's also about script development, getting that story really tight, and not waiting we'll deal with that one if we get into production. That's I hear that a lot. It's like, well, we'll once we get it cast and once we do this, we'll fix it. If it's not on the page, it's not on the stage. We've all heard that, but it's true. It's so true, because I've been in both situations, and it happens at big Hollywood levels. I mean, I've talked to colleagues who are like, oh my God, we're shooting and we're on day, 30 of a 4-month shoot and they're still rewriting. And I've worked on big Hollywood stuff where they've had to bring in writers, but we're already shooting and there's a plot that's not working, and so it definitely happens. But
but
on
the
the
difference
indie
is they
level,
have the money to waste on
they
that.
have the money to do that. At an indie level, you don't have that money. So your script needs to be tight, and a lot of things should be worked out ahead of time, so that you're not waiting, to see let's see, this actor could bring this to the table. That's just poor planning and amateur. It's just an amateur move, especially at the indie. Like you're right, Jessica. If you have the budget, okay, fine. Fine, you can work some stuff out later. But we don't have that luxury in indie. So those would be the two main things that I would say are very important to take time with.
Thank you for that. And I have to ask, blockchain funding, what is that to people who've never heard that term before?
So blockchain is what cryptocurrency operates on. So everybody hears Bitcoin and Ethereum and Doge and whatever. But the technology that it runs on is called blockchain, and there are companies creating protocols like you see HTTP // that's a protocol that the internet runs on. Mm-hmm. So there's blockchain protocols that companies are building the ability for other operations to happen besides finance and crypto, right? Money exchange. There's other things. So several years ago, partners and I created a company and we raised money via the blockchain by creating a token and launching a sale. And we raised a bunch of money to then build rights, revenue, and royalty management software that operated on the blockchain so that artists, filmmakers, could track their IP in a way that was not obfuscated, was not manipulated, is transparent. And that's what the blockchain allows for, transparency of transactions. The internet is a centralized, siloed system. So information can be manipulated and it can be obfuscated and it can be, and it's not transparent. Blockchain is a decentralized network. So once there is a transaction that happens, it's transparent. Everyone can see it. Now, it's before its time. It's way before its time. But there are a lot of finance conferences out there for our industry, and there'll be a lot of accountants that work for the big, studios who are just always scratching their head because they're in an accounting nightmare all the time. Because if you imagine, they have thousands and thousands of pieces of IP that are all over the world. And especially when you get to foreign territories, the reporting is, you're getting reports from, dozens and dozens of different outlets and different distributors, and being able to do the accounting on that is a nightmare. And they're losing money, and there's not accounting for certain money. So, software that allows for everybody to operate there is definitely a futuristic, efficient way to do this. But that would mean people would have to be honest and not want to hide money from the creators. And they do that all the time. I mean, you sell your film right now and they say, oh, we're going to do a 30-70 split. You never see the reports to even know if you got the, any money. They won't even give you the reports, and you have to track them down, and they never respond. And then the person you were dealing with doesn't have that job anymore. And it's just it's like such an inefficient nightmare. And I'm one of these people who I find inefficiency absolutely maddening. And if there's a way to fix it, this would be the way to fix it. However, it would require everybody wanting to operate above board, which is a ginormous ask. Anyway, it's a bit before its time, and it's on ice right now, that software. It's being put on ice, if you will, until the time is ready, I suppose. In the meantime, my partner and I just spun off and created and kept doing what we always do, which was make movies, and Evotion Media, that we're just making movies.
I do want to get to Evotion Media, but I also want to say thank you for speaking about the blockchain funding, because the necessity for transparency and the thing that's holding it up is people not being honest and people being, deceitful for gain. It's awful, but like the whole world that you talked about is is fascinating that, there is this solve, and you saw a need in the industry. There is a solve for it. And I mean, hopefully, like, it's just a matter of time before we get there. But it's good to know. It's good to know, especially for indie filmmakers, when we're not always the most financial business. I mean, you need a business sense, but like, we should have had tax classes in high school. We should have had we should have had how to do an LLC in college for any of our majors.
Yeah,
for most people, that just doesn't happen.
Monique, our education system that was developed in the 30s by the billionaires then purposely created an education system that created workers. They don't want thinkers. They want workers. Okay. And that's why today Project 2025 is rolling back education, because they want different type of workers, but they want workers. They don't want thinkers. They want baby makers and they want workers. So, that's why it's by design.
Mm-hmm. But then the onus really is on us to educate ourselves, because it's not going to be handed to us.
Well, then also they've infiltrated a little bit the college system, because then that's, when you go to college, that's when you become a thinker. But then you come out of it with so much debt that you have to keep working. It's crazy.
Well, this is it. So only the billionaire and billionaire families get to keep going and get to keep, yes, we see it. We see it. And if you have that those certain schools, behind your name, you're not in debt, and you get to climb right up anywhere you want to go, because that's a network, like the Old Girls Network, which I appreciate your name. I really love it. I went to an all-women's college. Simmons is an all-women's university. And very proud to have gone to Simmons. It was a college when I was there, and then it's become a university, but which is exciting. And we've heard about the Old Boys Network our entire life, so having an Old Girls Network is super, super important. And this is, it's kind of what we're up to at NYWIFT, New York Women in Film and Television. It's like we're here to advance and uplift women in the media landscape, and that's is exactly what we do. We take it extremely seriously, and we help each other, because you have to. And education is a big part of it. Educating ourselves. And I don't have children per se, but I have a lot of godchildren, and I have a stepdaughter. And one of the things that, my husband and I were like, well, we didn't learn financial literacy. Our parents were just regular working people, and we had to teach ourselves. But we decided when she was really young that we were going to start teaching her financial literacy, and read this book, do this, Rich Dad, Poor Dad, great book to start with. I don't know if you've ever read that book, but, it's important that financial literacy and learning how to do your taxes and learning how to do a spreadsheet of finances it's important, and I'm just sort of self-taught, especially with line producing is budget making. And, it's self-taught. It's just not brain surgery. It's just numbers and, research.
And so much of this industry is self-taught too. Like there's not really typically a training programs, or like you come in and you're like, okay, so the first 2 weeks you're going to be training on the job. It's not like that. You're self-taught.
Totally. I mean, I didn't go to college for film. I was a, biology, environmental science major. And then there were some alums at my college that were in the business. And Denise Denovi was my commencement speaker. And I felt like she was talking directly to me when she was doing her commencement, because I had a very similar experience that she had at Simmons. And, it was a mixed bag of experience there. And so, when I finally took a visit out to LA, because a friend of mine moved out there and I went to visit, I looked those alums up and was like, hey, and they were very gracious, and was like, open the door, old Girls Network. And they opened the door and had lunch. And that's how I got my job at Disney Touchstone Television. It was an alum who had hired another alum, and she was moving on and she was needing an assistant. So I said, I'll be your assistant. And I was looking for a job. I did a couple things in environmental science with the EPA and MassPerg and whatever. And I was like, oh my God, I can't do this. Like, I will die. Like, these people are so depressed. And like, it's such a governmental like conundrum of just nothing is going to move here anytime soon. And it was not my personality, but I like to learn. I like how understanding the origin of how things work. I like that. I love all of that. So anyway, I that's where I started, and it was because of an old girls network that I got, you know, kickstarted into entertainment, if you will. And when I was there on the desk learning my way at Disney, they were like, read these scripts and give us coverage. I was like, what does that mean? I don't know what that means. I don't know what. So I started taking a writing course in Santa Monica because I was like, I don't want to be a writer, but I need to understand what a structure, you know, for a screenplay for television is. So I just kind of went to educate myself and ended up working for that company in New York years later. So I read a lot of first drafts during working for that screenwriting school. Was another education, which was, you know, educating myself on like how that all works. So I, you know, I was sort of lucky, and I don't know, I just followed the breadcrumbs, if you will, and taught myself things. Like if I didn't know it, then I would go figure out how to learn it.
That's the true definition of a producer, to be honest. It's like, okay, here's the problem. Let's figure it out. Keep you know, keep the ball moving. Before we get to NYWIFT, which we are so excited about, I do want to talk about the inception of your Evotion Media company. How, you know, you're a fellow co-founder. And so we always like to talk to co-founders too in this space, because again, there's like so much you don't know. So how did that come to be, and what was the inception of that?
Well, when I moved to New York, you know, on my own, I started Streetwise Pictures, and as we mentioned, and that's when I, you know, doing production services and investor relations. And then, you know, then I met my husband, but we weren't married yet. And that's when we started doing the blockchain company. And, you know, once we're not technologists, we're filmmakers. So we were like, okay, you guys, you take the technology, we're going to go continue to make movies. And we said, well, we need a new production company name, and we need, you know, a new identity. So he and I work with my husband, he and I created Evotion, and we wanted a made up name. It's a made up name, but it sort of evokes, you know, I don't know, what does it make you feel or think when you hear the word Evotion?
It's Evotion. It's like evolving, devotion. Like it seems like very passionate without, like you said, it being an actual word, but it feels like there's a lot of passion behind it.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. And we're the type of people who like to have one foot, especially my husband, into some other dimension and some other realm of reality. Just, you know, we definitely are always looking forward, you know, of like, okay, what's next? Or, you know, because I find humanity extremely disappointing. And I just feel like we've been doing the same thing to each other for a millennia. Like we just keep killing each other and controlling each other. And like, you know, the astronauts just went up to the moon and they looked down on us and they're like, you silly, we're silly. Like, stop it. We're all the same. We're all on this like orb floating through some space, and like, why can't we get it together? You know, like I just find it at a very deep soul level just so devastatingly disappointing that we can't find a way to just live in utopia, you know, and like really just love each other and live the way we were meant to, so that we can actually spend our time creating instead of surviving, you know. And not to get too crazy on blockchain, but one of the promises of blockchain was, you know, to create universal basic income so that people cannot have to worry every day about surviving basic survival needs. And then you get to do what we're here to do, which is to create things. So that's, you know, that was sort of where we come from and our inspiration for creating our company. And we just finished shooting a feature film last June that will hopefully be coming out this year to film festivals. It's called The Plea. I'm very proud of this one. And so, you know, we're just looking at how to, again, leave people in a better place than they started than they started. You know, so you're sitting down and you're devoting an hour and a half or 2 hours to a movie. Hopefully when you get up, you're feeling better than you did 2 hours ago.
And we need that, truly. We truly need that. There's not a lot of places we can get that. Okay, so pivoting, you are board president of NYWIFT, the New York Women in Film and TV organization. How that is massive. That is so massive. How
Yeah.
I mean, congratulations. You're doing a fantastic job with all of the hats you're wearing, with everything you've managed to accomplish. You are
And providing
spearheading
a great service too.
Yeah, you're providing an immensely important service to this community of women. And so can you speak to you told us a little bit about already, but can you please speak to the mission and the amazing work that this organization is doing?
It's truly, and people say this, it's an honor, but it's truly been an honor because, first of all, just on a personal note, it was like such a lifeline for me because I joined the board during the pandemic. So it was in that first year, it was pretty much virtual. And there were some fellow colleagues on the board who I really admire a lot. And I was, it was the pandemic and there was, some personal losses on my side that were just really tough to swallow. And, menopause. Hi, how you doing? Menopause. Like what? You know what I mean? Like no one tells you. No one prepares you. Okay. We could have a whole separate podcast about menopause whenever you're ready.
We'll be calling you because we have no clue. We have no clue.
I'm telling you. And luckily I'm here to say it is an incredible time transition in your life. It's like a different kind of puberty. Anyway, I'll leave it there. But it was just a time in my life where I was in a major transition. So joining the board of NYWIFT became this wonderful lifeline that I didn't even know I needed. And each one of the board members that I've had the opportunity to get to know have just been so inspiring and just such a great group of supportive women. And I speak as somebody who went to an all-women's college and have been involved in other organizations. And I can't always say that groups of women that get together are this supportive, if you know what I'm saying. And they truly are. They truly are. I have the privilege and just the joy of working alongside of the CEO, Cynthia Lopez, who's just such a dynamo, just genuinely incredible human being. I learn so much from her all the time. And so, I'm getting just as much out of it as I'm if I'm giving, and just all the relationships and the new colleagues that I've had the opportunity to meet and develop projects with and support and connect to other women who are, doing really dynamic, amazing things, especially during a time when our industry is just beyond challenging. I mean, we've been saying for 15 years, this industry is changing. It's changing. Well, yes, it is changing. And it's very, 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 very challenging. And you really have to keep a very positive outlook on life and, delve into your ability to manifest and also wear many hats. And I think we talked a little bit about this, Monique, like being able to say you're a producer, director, actor, or you're an actor and a writer and a director is now extremely acceptable. It used to not be in our day, like way back when it was like you have to pick a lane, but not only because of budgets and finance, even studios want people who can do multiple different jobs. But now it's finally accepted and it's needed. You kind of have to do that in order to survive in our business. And we talk a lot about that at NYWIFT with some of the summits and panels and discussions that we host, that, the ability to pivot right now is extremely important, But, NYWIFT is New York Women in Film and Television. It was formed in 1977. And we are, what are we in our 47th year? And the mission is really to connect and educate and advocate for women to accelerate diversity in media, So, NYWIFT really believes that media has the power to change hearts and minds. And so, it's just one of these fantastic networks that's part of like, I think like 60 or more women in film organizations worldwide. NYWIFT, I think, currently has more than like 2,000 members, and they're mostly in the New York area, but also we have members from, other parts of the, world and countries and things like that who happen to pop in and out from time to time. So, and even though women is in our name, we still welcome and participate all genders and all identities. And we do really welcome, men into our organization because, men are part of our community, and they're our advocates as well. And we really celebrate men who like to hire and elevate women in the workplace. So, so that's a little bit about NYWIFT. And we are, our website is NYWIFT, NYWIFT.org, and you can learn more about it. And our memberships are like so affordable. They're less per month than a streamer, and you get so much professional development out of it and promotion. And, it's like a newsletter you can just join. If you don't have to be a member too. And there's just so much amazing information flowing. And we do screenings of our member projects. And so yeah, it's extremely rewarding, and it's a great network, and everybody needs a network to be able in this industry to be able to, and I'm sure in LA you guys have women in film, right? So you probably.
Yes, we do. We're both members of Women in Film.
Mm-hmm.
I'm a member of Women Independent Producers, which is how I got in contact with you.
Oh yeah. WIP is great. I've been a member for a very long time. Women Independent Producers is one of the most incredibly supportive organizations. Especially if you're like in production and you're like, does anyone have a camera person in like Philadelphia? And it's
every
like
single day. It is fascinating. And I'm learning so much because these asks that are coming into this email chain, it's first of all, it's like no gatekeeping. They're so specific. It's like, does anybody have a spreadsheet about, a needed like DPs in Canada that's also speak Spanish? Boom, someone has a resource. And I'm like, what is happening?
Gorgeous.
It's so amazing.
It's gorgeous. It's amazing. It's a listserv. It's so affordable. There's really intimate, lovely soirees, as they call them. The ED is fantastic human being. Like, it's a great network. It's the real deal. Like, it's the real deal. And that is so hard. Just warms my heart.
Yeah, I had to send in a resume, write an essay, do an interview. I was like, oh my gosh, I hope I get in. And I'm thankful that I did.
Yeah.
But
they're not just in New York. That's like, they're all over LA and New York. And I've seen them all over, and they do stuff at Sundance. And yeah, it's a great organization.
But I really appreciate you saying that NYWIFT does have, international and national members as well as, being New York based. That's good to know for anyone interested in applying to be a member of NYWIFT too.
Because we do have a lot of virtual master classes, so you can be anywhere, and their master classes are really incredible, and so that's a great benefit. And there's several virtual, and then everybody comes to New York at some point in their career. So if they're in our gala is every spring. We just had our Muse Gala in March, and we honored 9 women who are outstanding achievements in media and entertainment, and we have it at Cipriani every year, and it's always an incredibly inspiring. It's like not to be missed. It's such an amazing event. Lovely lunch at Cipriani. Who doesn't want that? And and so that's annually, and that's something to come to New York for annually, for sure.
And so I do want to ask you about the Plea film, if you're able to tell us anything about that. And then you also have Down with the King now on Netflix, correct?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Oh my gosh, we want to learn about both of those.
Yeah. Down with the King is I'll start there. It's we shot it during the pandemic up in the Berkshires. So a very indie, very tight crew because it was the pandemic, and we had to have all those compliance rules at the time. And I think we spent more on the compliance rules than we did on the camera package, just as an FYI. And it's like, that's gone, poof, gone. It was like this little thing. Okay. Anyway, so we did that. And this was Diego Angaro's second film. His first one was at Sundance called Bob and the Trees. And this was his second film. And it starred Freddie Gibbs. And he's very cinema verite. He's a French director. It's really beautiful. Zach LeBeau, who is the co-founder of Evotion and my production partner, he was really leading that for the company and producing that one. And I was at the desk making sure all the numbers and all the I's were dotted and T's were crossed and things like that, along with another producer, Rob, who's wonderful. Yeah, so it went on to premiere in Cannes, A Seed, and then Sony bought it, and now it's on Netflix. And we got a lot of critical acclaim for that one. We really, really did well, and it's a lovely film. I think ultimately it's probably the theme is mental health, which is really important. And then our next film is The Plea. And The Plea is co-directed by Zach LeBeau and Dean Imperial. And this is we're calling it a comedy noir that was shot by Tinks Chan in black and white. And it's America on Display. It's about a jury that has been sequestered to a hotel to deliberate a case of whether a man is guilty of manslaughter for accidentally dropping a tray of embryos. So we're just starting. Yeah.
This is so relevant. Wait. Oh my, but it's a comedy?
Well, we think it's kind of funny. I mean, America on Display is kind of funny. I mean, I don't think it's a broad comedy per se, but we find it these characters are characters. These are American characters.
Yes.
They're laughable at times. So we're just starting the film festival submissions. We would really love for it to screen at as many festivals as it possibly can, because it's really beautifully shot and it needs to be seen in the theater setting as much as it possibly can before it goes to a streamer. And so that we're not in a hurry to get it distributed to a streamer, because that's pretty much what you get these days. And the only theatrical life that these indies see a lot of times is film festivals. So we're looking forward to touring this around for as long as we can at film festivals. And that's really the goal. So we shot it exclusively in Hudson Valley, New York, and super indie. Thank you to Hudson Valley, because they were extremely supportive and really fun place to shoot a film. We're excited about this. I'm proud of this one. It's a great film.
Yeah, we can't wait.
And so we're making it into a play. It was actually written initially for it to be a play, and so we are going to do the play version of it in the next year, and that's something I'll be directing.
Wow, incredible! We love that. Well, in addition to that, we do love to manifest on this podcast. In addition, of course, to you doing a tour with Plea around all the different film festivals, and directing the play. I mean, that's already a lot. But is there anything else you want to speak into existence with, whether it's within 5 years, 2 years, 10 years, anything else on the docket?
General,
that's a lot already.
Whatever you want to do. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, I would really love to see our industry for independent voices allow for a real distribution path that is financially beneficial to indie filmmakers. And I would like that to include theatrical distribution, because movies need to stay in theaters. Culture happens in theaters. We need the theater for cinema. And so those two importantly connected things is what I really want to see happen. And I know there's a big effort of a lot of folks who are thinking and pushing that into existence along with us. So it shall be.
Amazing. We totally agree. Absolutely. Yeah.
Thank you so much for coming on the podcast. We're so happy. I'm so happy to have met you. Mo, I know, is happy to have met you. We're extremely happy that you were able to, share some of your time and advice and your story with us. We'll leave all your website in the show notes, and we'll keep people abreast as to the social media presence whenever it comes. And now, go get set. The Get Set podcast is created, edited, and produced by Jessica Payne and Renee Schwaneman of Old Girls Entertainment. Original music composed by the incredibly talented Kyle Hall. You can follow him on his social media at Kyle Hall Music. If you vibed with this episode and our mission of bringing to light different career paths within an industry, especially for women, subscribe, leave a review, and share us with a friend. Thanks, friend.